can't simply observe with your camera off. All right, Benny McKinney, please, your camera still seems to be off. Mr. McKinney, I think you're having problems with your audio.
Okay.
Mr. McKinney, I may suggest that you go to YouTube and look for the 323rd District Court, and you can watch these proceedings from there.
Good.
I'm going to mute him. I'll give him a couple of minutes to see if his video catches up, but I may remove him just as we go along. All right, so Ms. Mowdy, please proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. McCoy, how are you presently employed?
I work for the Texas Juvenile Justice Department.
Okay, and if you would briefly describe for the court what type of duties are associated with that position.
I oversee the Department of Sentenced Offender Disposition. There's 3 of us in our department. We are responsible for all of the sentenced offender youth in the agency, processing them for release to either adult parole, prison, return to court for hearings, placement on juvenile parole.
Okay, and do you yourself prepare any documents in anticipation of these hearings?
Yes.
And what type of documents do you prepare?
My department prepares the master file that was submitted, as well as what we call the court report, the in the matter of, the summary.
Okay, and what is a master file?
It is a complete master file of the youth while they're with us that contains some documents of chronologicals, any behavioral incidents, the treatment that the youth has been going through.
Okay, and are you a representative of TJJD in regards to the matter concerning Zachariah McKinney?
Yes.
And did you prepare that master file in regards to Mr. McKinney?
I did.
Okay. And did you provide those to all parties with 5 days notice?
Yes.
Okay. Now, with Mr. McKinney, do you recall what he was originally placed or sentenced to TJJD for?
He was committed to us for aggravated robbery.
Okay, and do you know what offense level that is in the state of Texas?
It's a 1st-degree felony.
Okay, and if you could briefly describe to the court the circumstances of that offense.
According to the documentation that I have here, it says, according to the IEP and attached police report, Zacharias and a co-actor robbed the victim at gunpoint. Reportedly, Zacharias's vehicle followed the victim across several locations, attempting to get her attention. The victim finally stopped at her house and witnessed Zacharias' vehicle pass and turn the corner. Shortly after that, Zacharias and a co-actor arrived and began to question the victim. Zacharias and the co-actor both pulled out pistols and pointed them, demanding her valuables. They ran off to a waiting vehicle and drove away.
Okay. And do you know what the respondent was sentenced for or sentenced to?
He received a 4-year sentence.
Okay, and that was a determinate sentence, correct?
Yes.
And what was the minimum period of confinement on this case?
On a 1st-degree felony, it's a 3-year minimum.
Okay, and Mr. McKinney will not reach that minimum period of confinement, is that correct?
Correct.
And why not?
He is going to turn 19 before he can finish the complete 3 years of that minimum.
Okay, so by the 19th birthday, how much time has the respondent served at that sentence?
Approximately 20 months of the 36.
Okay, of the 4-year sentence.
Of the 4-year sentence, 36-month minimum.
Okay, and so is this hearing necessary in order for TJJD to parole the respondent?
Yes.
Okay, so if we can start back from the beginning, where was Mr. McKinney first admitted to?
He was committed to our orientation and assessment unit, the Ron Jackson unit, on July 26th of 2019.
Okay, and where did he go from there?
He was later transferred on August 21st of 2019 to the Gainesville State School.
Okay, and what type of offenders are usually housed at the unit?
It's a high restriction facility, so it's going to be all, determinate sentence as well as indeterminate offenders.
Okay. Would that include violent offenders?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned an orientation that took place at Ron Jackson. Briefly tell the court what type of orientation that is. The Ron Jackson unit in Brownwood is where all youth committed to TJJD go for a period of anywhere from 30 to 45 days. There's a battery of assessments that are done, a psychological, a psychiatric, medical, educational, and at that time they are going to establish the treatment needs for the youth. Okay. Did the respondent attend that orientation?
Yes.
Okay. And at that orientation, is it made clear to juveniles what the expectations of TJJD are?
I'm sorry, what are?
What the expectations are?
Yes.
Okay. And are they given information about how to succeed in TJJD?
Yes.
Okay. And is it fair to say that individuals who are on determinate sentencing are made aware of the transfer process?
Yes, we do what we call a DSO orientation, and we actually, Ms. Bennett and I did orientation with Zacharias on August 13th of 2019.
Okay. Now, there's something called stage assessments. What are those?
Stages are in our programming that a youth works through, and as you earn higher stages, you earn more privileges up until you get to the final stage.
Okay. And if you could briefly go through, I believe it's stages 1 through 4 and then stage yes. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. What stage is the respondent on?
He was recently promoted to stage yes on February 10th.
Okay. And could you just give the court a timeline of at which point the respondent achieved each stage?
Sure. He received stage 2 in October of 2019, stage 3 in May of 2020, stage 4 in July of 2020, and then, as I said, stage yes on February 10th of this year.
Okay. Now, we also spoke in regard to orientation, that's an evaluation about the different type of programs that.
I'm sorry, you broke up a bit. Can you repeat that?
Sure. When we were speaking about orientation, you mentioned there were different type of programs that were determined which would be appropriate for the respondent. Which programs did he qualify for?
He was required to complete our violent offender programming as well as moderate alcohol and other drug treatment.
Okay, and did he complete both of those programs?
He did.
Okay, and how long are these programs generally?
The moderate AOD is not very long. It's a couple of months, but the power source program is going to be longer. So he was in that from March of 2020 through December of 2020.
Okay, and regarding the AOD program, was there a discharge that was issued on December 31st, 2019 in this case?
Yes.
Okay, and do you have that master file in front of you, Ms. McCoy?
I do.
Okay, I'm going to direct you to page 150 of that PDF. That should be the discharge summary. If you can let me know when you've located it.
I'm there.
Okay. If you would, can you speak about how the respondent acknowledged his drug program or his drug problem in this program?
What page was that again? I'm sorry.
That's page 150.
150.
150. Thank you.
Is there a specific section you're looking at? I'm trying to.
I would direct you under treatment summary in the first paragraph. There's mention of the respondent's acknowledgement of a drug issue.
Oh, yes. It says he was enrolled in the moderate alcohol and other drug treatment program on 9/16/2019. He did not think he had a problem with drug use since he had only smoked marijuana, but records indicated he had drank alcohol and codeine.
Okay.
And if we go down, what does it also state about his associations with antisocial peers?
In the bottom section, it says he tends to be easily pressured to associate with antisocial peers that could lead to relapse.
And if you could also, for the court, talk about the types of needs and problems that he's still having at the time of discharge.
Are you asking on toward the top his AOD treatment goal, or?
No, there's a specific section in there that's talking about needs and problems at times.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Says Zacharias's primary risk factor is antisocial personality, has not reduced this factor as documented on level 2 hearing for assaulting peers, tampering with safety equipment, and continuing to be disrupting scheduled activity, refusing to participate, and threatening other. Youth goal is to earn high school diploma and vocational training before he's released from TJJD. He plans on returning to live with his mother in Tarrant County. They would benefit from being referred to family reunification counseling.
Okay. And you spoke about another program, the VOP program, is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
I believe there's also a summary that was completed at the time he was discharged from that, and that was 152. Do you
Yes.
have that?
Can you repeat that? Cut out, Ms. Mowdy?
Oh, I apologize, Judge. There was a discharge summary in regards to the VOP program, and I've directed Ms. Coy to page 152 of that master file. Do you have that in front of you, Ms. Coy?
Yes.
Okay. And if you would, I believe it's on 152 of that, or 153, excuse me, of that report. If you could briefly review it and let us know what it talked about the respondent's participation level in this program.
I see where it says initially Zacharias minimally participated in treatment, but completed most tasks. In July, his participation in the virtual sessions were suspended due to him using the iPad inappropriately. Overall, his participation at this time could be described as below average, but average for a youth in his treatment cohort at this time.
And I believe there's one more sentence after that.
He often appeared disinterested and did not actively participate in group discussions without prompting. However, he was responsive to feedback from the treatment team and his YST.
And what is group?
I'm sorry, what is what?
What is the group program?
Well, the program is supposed to be delivered in a group setting. However, due to COVID, they were having to do things in a different manner because they weren't able to meet fully as groups, which also made it a little difficult with it being in virtual sessions.
And what is a chronological record?
We call them chronologicals. It's where staff would document any interactions and meetings with Zacharias.
Okay, and was there one that was created in the respondent's case?
There's quite a few in his case.
Okay, and I would direct you to page, I believe it's 376 in the master file.
Okay.
And going through there, if you would just tell the court what Zacharias's participation was on January 25th of this year in regards to group.
The case manager group, the assessment, it says group was held. Zacharias did not participate, slept in room.
Okay. And then on page 375, what was his participation on February 4th of this year?
February 4th. It says he received a 1 for participation for his disruptive behaviors.
And on, I believe it's page 374 to 375, what was his participation in group on February 8th of this year?
Oh, he received a 1 for being late to group.
Okay. And if you would refer to 374, what was his participation on February 9th of this year?
McKinney received a 1 for participation for not taking group seriously.
Okay. Now, was there a psychological evaluation administered to the respondent on December 30th of 2020?
Yes,
Okay. And do you have that in front of you by any chance?
I do.
Okay. You would reference that. You could, there's a certain section where they talked about past criminal behavior. Could you describe to the court what the respondent spoke about his breaking into cars and committing robbery?
At 16 years old, Zacharias reported he began breaking into cars and robbing people. He claimed he broke into over 20 cars, taking any money that he could find.
And if you could go on, I believe there's more in regards to robbery.
Zacharias stated robbed 20 to 25 drug dealers.
And what does
Would you
it
like me
say? I'm sorry?
Oh, I was going to say, would you like me to keep reading?
Yeah, if you would.
He claimed he would only rob drug dealers because Zacharias believed he could not get in trouble if both him and the person he was robbing were doing something illegal.
Okay. And there's a certain section in that psychological examination where he spoke about his substance abuse. If you could, let us know what the respondent spoke about on that subject. I believe that's on page 129.
Zacharias has a history of substance use that he reported started when he was 12 years old with the use of marijuana. Zacharias claimed he smoked marijuana once at 12 before smoking once a week at 13 years old. He reported he began smoking tobacco around the same time as marijuana because he would mix the two together. Zacharias denied drinking alcohol, stating he never tried alcohol. He reported trying codeine once, but didn't like the effect.
And what did the psychologist follow up with about her notes on that?
It says it is notable that documentation states that Zacharias reported he began smoking marijuana at age 8, used alcohol daily at age 16 years old, and used codeine prior to being adjudicated.
And that would be inconsistent with his statements in that psychological exam, is that correct?
From before, yes.
Okay. Now, there's also an area where they speak about his behavioral and certain rule violations that occurred while in TJJD. And it also talks about accountability. I'm referencing page 131. What did Zacharias say about his behavior there at TJJD?
He talked about it. There's 2 paragraphs. Do you want me to read them both, or?
If you would.
During discussion of his behavior at Gainesville State School, Zacharias took some responsibility for his actions. While he accepted responsibility for some of his minor rule violations, Zacharias also reported that staff were being petty When asked to clarify, Zacharias stated he would receive an incident report for not going to the cafe or due to the topic of conversation he would have with his peers. For the majority of the major rule violations, Zacharias took some responsibility and was able to explain what happened and why he responded out of aggression. However, there were several rule violations Zacharias could not remember or minimize the seriousness of his actions. Zacharias stated his pride led him to fight his peers and boredom led him to participate in the major disruption of campus facilities. He denied assaulting staff, claiming it was written weird in the report, and denied exposing himself, claiming he was unaware of a hole in his shorts.
Okay. And there's a second paragraph there that's regarding his accountability with minor rule violations. If you would let the court know. Thank you.
Zacharias summed up his minor rule violations as bad decisions and that he was caught up in the moment. He explained his major rule violations as a response to his emotional state at the time. Zacharias acknowledged that he often jumps to conclusions due to his pride and that he would be the first one to respond to a situation. He noted he used to tell himself that he still had time remaining on his sentence and downplay the seriousness of his behaviors. Finally, Zacharias stated he would make excuses for his behaviors by saying he was out of luck, so the consequences didn't matter.
During the psychological evaluation, they also discussed the underlying offense and the reason why he was there. I believe it's on page 133. If you would tell the court how he characterized the aggravated robbery that he committed.
Are you referring to the paragraph that starts, he provided information about his offense through presentation of an offense cycle?
Right. Yes, that one.
Indicating implementation of treatment concepts. He identified his unmet needs of power and control, as well as love and acceptance from family. Zacharias identified feeling confused because his mother was not around and that he felt he needed to spoil himself like how his sisters had been spoiled. Prior to his committing offense, Zacharias reported riding around in a car with 3 people. He was shown a picture of a woman who his co-actor claimed was a plug, a drug dealer, and they wanted to rob her.
More specifically, what did he say about the situation as it was happening? It's just right after that last sentence you read.
Okay. Zacharias stated he did not like the talk that was happening because it felt disorganized and not planned. He expressed that, sorry.
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. Now, the psychologist also expressed concerns about his aftercare plan if he is paroled. And this is on the community reintegration plan on page 134. If you would just briefly read there and let the court know what her concerns were about.
It says that Zacharias's reintegration plan appears to be realistic, but could benefit with more work on risk management strategies. He reported he plans to transition back to his mother's house in Crowley, which is 30 minutes away from his old friends.
And what did the respondents say would be the hardest part of parole?
Zacharias acknowledged that the hardest part of parole would be reporting and giving up control of the situation.
Okay. Now, at his time during TJJD, how many behavior instances has the respondent had?
He had 69 incidents,
Okay, and how many referrals did he have?
23.
And if you would just tell the court, what is a referral?
A referral is where the youth is sent to our regulation and safety unit. It removes the youth from the campus, wherever the incident and whatever's going on, and gives them a chance to kind of have a timeout.
And Ms. Coy, did you have a breakdown of just generally what these violations were all about?
Yes.
Okay, and if you would just recite that for the court for us.
Zacharias is most often written up for disrupting scheduled activities, 24, refusal to follow staff instructions, 7, and horseplay, 5.
And what is a level 2 hearing?
A level 2 hearing is a due process hearing that is held on behaviors that happen on the campus to, one, show that they happened, and to also assign a major consequence.
Okay, and did the respondent have any level 2 hearings?
He did.
How many?
He had a total of 7, 4 of them that were confirmed true.
Okay, and what were those for?
He had one in November of 2019 for assault causing bodily injury, another on December 6th of 2019 for tampering with safety equipment, December 12th of 2019 for assault, unauthorized physical contact. And there is a typo there where it says March 28th of 2020. That's actually February 28th of 2020. He had another one for assault, bodily injury of a youth.
Are you aware if the respondent had violations for assaultive behavior that did not result in a level 2 hearing?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. If it is listed, if there are, say, I believe 6 different incident reports that involve assaultive behavior without a level 2 hearing, that would be accurate.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. And if you could tell the court, when did the respondent's most recent violation occur?
His last violation was on January 11th of this year.
Okay, and what did that involve?
That involved a horseplay.
Okay, and if you would, do you have that violation report in front of you?
I do.
Okay, if you could just read the summary to the court for us.
It says, I was on dorm 3-4 to assist with an incident. I observed youth McKinney and youth Billy Jackson were acting aggressively, grabbing each other and yelling. The youths were physically separated several times, but continued trying to run at each other. CSA Bird instructed us to place youth McKinney, the instigator, in his room. Youth McKinney refused to go to his room. Youth McKinney was placed in a PRT and placed in his room. End of report. Youth McKinney refused to go to the infirmary. CCF-500, Hernandez Basilio, LeBron, and I went to dorm 3-4 to assist on an incident. What I saw was youth McKinney trying to grab youth Billy Jackson's face. Both were horsing around aggressively. Coach LeBron asked me to keep the youth separated. Then Coach Porter showed up to help LeBron restrain McKinney. I was instructed to help him to his room. RST escorted youth McKinney to his room. End of report. ERO, CCF-500, Porter, Taylor. Youth McKinney was horseplaying with other youth on the dorm. Youth was told to stop. CSA Bird told RST LeBron and I, Coach Porter, to bring youth McKinney to his room. RST LeBron and I asked youth to head to his room multiple times. RST LeBron and I escorted youth McKinney when youth resisted movement and was restrained. Youth was taken to his room.
Was there another violation in January of this year?
Yes.
Okay, and if you would, explain to court what that violation was.
There was a participation in a major disruption on January 10th of 2021.
Okay, and for the court's time, if we would, did this involve the respondent actually throwing water bottles and one of which breaking a window?
Yes.
Okay,
This incident was taken to a level 2 hearing and was not confirmed.
okay. Now, what is the recommendation of TJJD in this case?
The Texas Juvenile Justice Department is recommending that Zacharias be placed on TDCJ parole, for the remainder of his 4-year sentence.
Okay, and if he is paroled, where is he ultimately going to be supervised in the community?
His mother's home would have to be approved by TDCJ, but that's the home that has been submitted.
Okay, and are you recommending, or is TJJD recommending any sort of electronic monitoring?
Yes, we are recommending that if granted parole, he be placed on superintensive supervision, which is like GPS electronic monitoring. It's the highest level of supervision that TDCJ has.
Is every individual who's paroled on the highest level of supervision when paroled?
If they go to a release transfer hearing like this, yes.
Okay, and is electronic monitoring required in every case?
I'm sorry?
Is electronic monitoring also required in every case?
It's the same. The SISP includes the electronic monitor.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Boyd. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Houston?
Ms. Coy, how are you?
I'm good.
In reference to Zacharias McKinney, why is TJJD recommending parole?
Zacharias has earned his high school diploma. He has earned a vocational certification from OSHA, is working on a forklift certification. He has completed both the AOD program as well as the Power Source Violent Offender program, and also now has completed our highest stage of programming.
All right. And for sentence offenders in TJJD, are all the things that you just named off, are they easy to get for these kids?
Well, it takes work on their part, and it's depends on how hard they want to work. But he has, with that high school diploma, that is a lot of work.
Yes. And what do a lot of the juveniles fall short of obtaining what he has obtained?
As far as diploma, yes, we don't have as many high school diplomas.
And the other thing, being yes active, is that an easy thing to obtain?
It takes work. It takes time and their behavior.
Now, pardon me if it takes me a while, but I'm going through this document on a computer, so I'm trying to go through 600 some pages of it. When he first went to TJJD, there were goals that were set out for him. And if I'm not mistaken, those goals will be on page 70. And to save you the time, I'm just going to read it, okay?
Okay.
Mr. Houston, just slowly, please.
I'm sorry, what?
Just make sure you read slowly for the record.
Yes, sir. It says the immediate goals: address his drug addiction and achieve sobriety, encourage pro-social peer relationships, rebuild family relationships affected by his involvement in the offense, and develop and implement a plan to achieve his education. And then 2 was long-range goals: address and eliminate issues contributing to delinquent behavior to prevent youth from reoffending as an adult, consistently demonstrate appropriate behaviors during the duration of the confinement in effort to be considered for parole, learn a trade, and desire for a better life. Now, those two goals, do you believe Mr. McKinney has achieved those goals?
He has completed our alcohol and other drug program. He has completed our violent offender programming, earned his high school diploma, and a vocational certification. So he has addressed those.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, when you're in TJJD, it's not exactly a private school atmosphere. Would you agree?
Correct.
There are some kids that just wake up on the wrong day and they just want to fight. Is that also correct?
That could happen, yes.
And so with Mr. McKinney having 69 referrals, and at least 4 of those were at least 3 of those were level 2 hearings for being assaultive. Is that really terrible behavior, or is that kind of normal or less than normal?
The one thing to note about his behavior and his incidents is while he did have those, they were all quite a while ago, and the majority of them within the first 6 months of being committed to us. And that type of behavior early on is not uncommon.
Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Kevin Hill, he works with y'all also, correct?
Yes.
And is it true that Zacharias has not had any kind of level 2s, or at least proven level 2s, since February of 2020?
Yes, that was his last proven level 2 hearing.
And would you say that is an absolute increase in his behavior?
For the positive, yes.
Yes, positive. Is that in the last year, has his behavior been better than when he first got there in the first 6 months?
Yes.
Okay. Some of the things went over with the prosecutor were the fact that he admitted to BMVs and robberies. Do you remember that conversation?
Yes.
I mean, would you rather have somebody not be truthful or be upfront with you in order to get a better counseling while they're in TJJD?
We would want youth to be open and talk about that so we can address those issues.
So, I mean, you can't really penalize him for being honest about his past, right?
Right. We would like him to do that.
And are you hopeful for Zacharias' future?
Yes, we are as an agency.
And do you believe, from what you have seen while in TJJD, especially in the last year, that he will be successful in not reoffending?
We believe that with the strict parole conditions that we have suggested, he has learned the tools to be successful, and it is going to be up to him what he chooses to do with them, but he does have the ability.
Yes, ma'am. Once again, do you think there'll be any issue with, I'm sorry, well, I skipped something. You talked about him operating a forklift and getting a certification. Did you know he actually got that certification?
No.
All right. And was that an OSHA qualified course?
It is a forklift in-person course, and he also did get his OSHA certification.
And while he was there, did he also get any other training like in CPR?
If he did, I did not see any that on the what we call the code, the 120 codes, but it is possible that he could have done that in school. But I did not see it in there, listed in there.
And I believe Zacharias was also a student worker. Is that true? Many things were affected by COVID, but do you remember? Is there anything about him being a student worker?
Not that I recall off the top of my head, but that don't recall anything. Let me.
Did he also get a food handling certification from early last year?
I am not showing that in our system. However, it is possible if I were to check with education that it's possible that he did get a certificate. They just didn't enter it.
Okay. And was he also a participant in the football and basketball teams?
Actually, I believe he was.
Okay. And that was affected by COVID also, right?
Everything has been affected.
Right. And as far as the groups go in participation, what does that numerical system for participation mean? When you say you get a 1?
So the youth are, I guess, graded, for a lack of a better word. You get points based on your participation. And the lower the points, that would be that you weren't participating as hard as you could have that day.
And does it seem he does better when he's more integrated with a one-on-one situation or groups?
I'm not really sure.
Okay. Do you know what his goals are if released?
I know that he would like to attend a vocational school.
Has he said anything about trying to get a job in Arlington at General Motors?
Yes.
Okay. And would the forklift certificate come in handy for that job?
Yes.
Okay. And so you've seen Zacharias for approximately 20 months at your facility, and you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in your experience, your recommendation at this point is for Zacharias to be paroled out. Is that correct?
Yes, that is the agency's recommendation.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Coy. Pass
You're
witness.
Ms. Mowdy, redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Ms. Coy, I had a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So why did it take so long for Zacharias to get from level stage 4 to level yes?
Well, one of the issues is he was working in his main treatment, which would have been the Power Source Violent Offender Program. And so we don't like to complete kids in that on stage yes if they're still working on main treatment programs.
Okay. So it's nothing that he did to undermine it?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. That's the only question I have. Ms. Mowdy, please call your next witness.
State has no further witnesses. State rests.
All right. So at this point, it's been about an hour. I like to give the court reporter a rest about every hour just to make sure we have a good record. So, Mr. Easton, about how many witnesses do you anticipate?
I anticipate 2, but I am having trouble getting a hold to 1.
Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and take recess for probably about 15 minutes. Let everyone stretch. Let her stretch her hands. Rest her hands.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay. We'll come back at 2:45. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 15 minutes.
Get out of here.
Okay, I think we're back. Yes, looks like yes. Okay, all right, so we're back on the record. It's 2:54. And so the state had arrested Mr. Houston. Please call your first witness.
Your Honor, at this time, I will refrain from calling a witness and I will arrest and close.
Okay, closing arguments?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Mowdy?
May it please the court? I want to briefly go over the couple goals that Mr. Houston had spoke about with Ms. Coy. These two goals involved fostering pro-social peer relationships and consistently demonstrating good behavior in TJJD. Defense counsel mentioned that, I believe Ms. Coy as well, that the respondent has behaved better the past year and the last than the first 6 months he was there in TJJD. I'd like to direct the court's attention, though, to that behavior. And that behavior in the first 6 months was abysmal. I believe there was 1 month that there was up to 17 violations. Any progress in comparison to the first 6 months is going to look much better. But however, the respondent knew that this transfer release hearing was coming. He was aware of it, and I believe he was briefed about it on January 29th. Even then, there were still 2 violations last month. There was, I believe, 4 different lack of participation in group, disruption in group. It's clear by that behavior that the respondent is still having a difficult time deviating from negative peer relationships. He, by his own admission, says peer pressure is an issue for him, and it's something that TJJD has been focusing on. If the court does review those violations during his time, you will see that the respondent, in quite different situations with other children or other youths who are involved, they're attempting to scale a roof of a building, they're committing assaultive behavior, they are blocking guards from coming into rooms with furniture. It's more than horseplay, and it's more than just disruption. And this behavior was consistent throughout his time in TJJD. There might be some improvements, but it's the state's position that due to the nature of the offense, the severity of the offense, the state would be comfortable with parole if we could see that there was indeed taking accountability and making and affecting some changes that were due to the underlying motivations for his criminality. And the state's position is that we are not convinced. Even knowing that parole is an option and it's being recommended by TJJD, there's still this inability for the respondent to deviate from these risky behaviors, and he continues to put himself in that position. We are asking for that. We're asking because of those reasons that he be not paroled, but transferred to the institutional division of TDCJ. He's had the opportunity to demonstrate good behavior, and although he has made some strides, at this point, the state is not convinced. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Houston, closing.
May it please the court. Your Honor, Zacharias McKinney, I'm not going to argue one bit. It was a terrible offense. When you, whether the gun was loaded or unloaded, when you pull a gun on somebody and rob them of their property, it puts that person in fear. But in Zacharias McKinney case, he was a young man. He was 16. He has been in custody since basically July of 2019. And he has learned some things since he's been away in TJJD. He has got his high school education. He took the programs that they told him to take, AOD for substance abuse issues. They told him to take violent offender program. He took that, passed all of them. He even got certifications in vocational skills while he was there. He's done what they've asked of him. And you heard Ms. Coy yourself. She says he's achieved his goals. And I'll go even a step further, Your Honor, is when Tim Bednarz and myself were in front of you in a sentencing hearing, you told Mr. McKinney that I want to see what you do when you go to TJJD, and that's how I'm going to make my decision. Well, he's done what he was supposed to do. And yes, he has had rule violations. He had 69 of them. Even in the report master file, it says most of those rule violations are just impeding a schedule or minor. And the 4 he did have, they were like within the first 6 months of him getting there. He has modified his behavior. He's changed. He does have the ability to add to society. And I'm not going to comment on the fact that the victim has passed away, but the simple fact is I don't believe Zacharias McKinney would ever even see her again. It would not happen. He doesn't need, the society doesn't need to protect from him as far as the victim or her family. And one more thing. Back when this case was going on, Zacharias McKinney was placed on EM from the whole time he was in custody. I believe he was level 1 outstanding. That was a month. And then in February, he was placed on an EM by the court. He stayed on that EM until late May, and I believe he never had one violation on that EM. And then so literally a month and a half prior to his sentencing, he was on no kind of monitoring whatsoever, and there's still no violations. He's proven to you he can do this, and who better to trust than the people that actually have seen him daily for 20 months? That's the Texas Department of Juvenile Justice. And their recommendation and all of their resources say he should be paroled. And, you know, they want him on the SIS program where he's, really scrutinized, and they want him on the EM. And, you know, there's high hopes that he goes and gets a job with his certifications. And Judge, I just hope for Zacharias and his family's sake that he gets the opportunity to show what else he can do and, you know, stay out of trouble and be a fruitful member of society. Thank you, Your Honor. I'll pass.
The court, having heard and considered all the competent evidence provided at this hearing, having considered the experiences and character of the person before and after commitment to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, the nature of the penal offense that the person was found to have committed, and the manner in which the offense was committed, the abilities of the person to contribute to society, the protection of the victim of the offense or any member of the victim's family, the recommendations of the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, County Juvenile Board, local juvenile probation department, and prosecuting attorney, the best interest of the person, and any other factor relevant to the issue to be decided. Or this court orders the child to be returned to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department with approval for release under supervision. Mr. McKinney, I'm going to place you on parole for you to finish the remainder of your sentence under supervision. Mr. McKinney, we had this conversation back when you first came in here when I adjudicated you delinquent for the offense of aggravated robbery. That was May 23rd of 2019, or May 28th of 2019. Now that on July 24th of 2019, we had a hearing where I committed you and I told you that use your time wisely, make good choices. I see what happened is you first went to TJJD, and I don't know if you went to act tough or flex for the other kids down there, but you had some problems. But I will say, for some reason, starting about March of 2020, you got your act together. You realize you're probably getting too old for this, that that's not the life you want to live, and that there's something better for you at home, better for you here in Fort Worth or in Crowley, better for you not in our institutional divisions. I don't want you to be institutionalized. I think you can do great things with your life. I think part of the problem is that you want to run things by your own rules. And that's why you had your own separate rules. It wasn't what your mom said. It wasn't what your teacher said. It wasn't what the law said. And I think for the last almost year, you've shown me that you can follow the rules just because they are the rules. And if you can do that, you can achieve incredible things with your life, Mr. McKinney. My question for you, and you don't have to answer this, is what changed? What happened all of a sudden where almost a year ago you had constant problems, big problems, these level twos, the assaults, and then it kind of flipped. And all of a sudden you're not hurting anybody. You're causing minor problems, a lot of it, which I think you're just a teenager. But then on the other hand, some of it just kind of went away. What changed for you?
I knew I didn't have to prove myself to nobody.
And that says a lot about maturity. You know, as a man, I will tell you, you don't have to prove anything to nobody. What you have to do is you have to live your life on the side of righteousness, and your actions will speak for themselves. People will know Zacharias because of the man that he is, not what he says or not how he throws down, right? It's just who you are. The way you live day to day will be the example for other people to see. I'm sure part of it's also you kind of saw other kids from Tarrant County come down there and get transferred. I don't know if that scared you or not, but whatever it took, I'm glad it did take, because I can see that you changed. I think you've been rehabilitated. I'm not worried about the same concerns. Now, you may go and reoffend again, but as far as what you could have done compared to who you were to who you are now, I'm proud of you, Zacharias. You did well. Yeah. All right. Okay, so at this point, I don't think, Ms. Coy, y'all are going to take possession of him, are you? Okay, yeah, his birthday is right around the corner.
Right, he will remain in the jail, and we are currently working on getting his mother's house approved and everything for his release on Monday, actually.
All right, well, Zacharias, keep your fingers crossed. You may be eating supper with your mom on Monday, okay? All right, thank you, everyone. That'll be the order of the court.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.